Sup guys, I saw this video titled "That Time I Almost Died from a Heart Attack Running Pharmaceutical Anavar" pop up on my YouTube homepage. It's quite an old one from Vigorous Steve. Most of you probably already know him, puts out great content. But I thought, what the hell, I've not seen it, so today I'm checking it out and giving you my thoughts.
Vigorous Steve here. In this episode of Storytime, I'm going to tell you guys all about that day I almost died from a heart attack running 50 milligrams of pharmaceutical grade Anavar per day. And when I say heart attack, I actually mean something else entirely, but it's still very similar. It's called prinzmetal angina, also known as vasospastic angina or variant angina, caused by coronary artery spasms or spasms of other arteries surrounding the heart. And this, over time, if it happens long enough, can actually result in a heart attack.
So prinzmetal angina, I've just had a look to see if there's any documentation that directly links Anavar to that condition, and I couldn't find any. But that doesn't mean to say that it's not related at all. Remember, absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. Something key here to remember as well, that of course there's no data of that demographic of people like Steve, you know, a bodybuilder, running higher doses and stacking it with other anabolics that I can guarantee you Steve was doing. So it makes sense that there's no data set in the literature of people pushing the envelope with Anavar that far. Most of the studies done are 2.5 to 10 milligrams used in a therapeutic context, not bodybuilders that are essentially megadosing it.
You get chest pain, maybe even your left arm gets slightly numb. You get this tingling sensation, and now you have to sit in the corner of the gym wondering if this is going to be your moment. And that gives you a whole nother level of anxiety just by itself. So again, it's...
Jeez, yeah, imagine that. 1 minute you're doing your workout and the next minute you think you're having a heart attack and you're going to die right there at the gym. Scary stuff.
Very, very scary when this occurs. This is the main reason why I decided to discontinue high-dose pharmaceutical Anavar and always tell people why you shouldn't escalate the dose upwards above 25 milligrams Anavar per day. Because, you know, anything over that can cause some serious side effects. That's what I experienced. So this is my story of how I never went higher than 25 milligrams pharmaceutical Anavar ever again. And before...
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of setting a 25 milligram limit on Anavar as well. In my experience with dosing it past that, it seems like there's diminishing returns and just a greater likelihood of side effects. And now knowing that those side effects could include a heart attack, I definitely recommend reconsidering if your plan is to go over 25 milligrams. I actually go into more detail with Anavar dosing in this video titled Anavar Dosing, What is the Sweet Spot? So check that one out if you've not seen it.
All right, we'll have to rewind the clock a little bit, but not as far back as the 1000 milligrams trembolone sandwich per week video or the 50 milligrams of Anadrol pre-workout video where I tore both hamstrings in 2 different scenarios. So this is only a couple of years back. I think it's around...
I can't believe that was actually a thing just 10 years ago. Guys were doing a gram of tren a week. If you don't know, there was this board called GH15 and the guy running it was a proponent of high dose trembolone. And we're talking upwards of 700 milligrams a week. Now looking back in hindsight and just seeing how reckless that actually was, I kind of feel bad for the guys that took his advice and actually did that. What an idiot that guy is. He probably fucked up so many people just with his bullshit. Anyway.
And around that time, I went to the pharmacy trying to source my PEDs here in Thailand, in Bangkok. And whoop-de-doo, I found pharmaceutical-grade Anavar in the form of Meridian Bonavar.
Isn't it wild that you can just get gear in the pharmacies in Thailand?
5 milligram tablets. They come in a packet of 50 tablets. So one strip contains 10 tablets of 2.5 milligrams. And if you go with 1 strip per day, you get some serious results. So at that time, I thought, you know what, if 1 strip per day gives me these great results, 10 times better than the 100 milligrams of Anavar I ran way back in Holland.
That's the real bodybuilder mentality, that, isn't it? What is the answer? More drugs.
Unfortunately, at this point in time, I'm currently off cycle, and that means there's no performance enhancing drugs in the house, just to prevent temptation. And well, since I'm trying...
I'm just imagining Steve having his gear in like a safe that's buried in his garden or something.
At that time, within 3 days, I had angina. So I had great results on 25 milligrams pharmaceutical Anavar per day, pumps galore, strength galore, all the cosmetic benefits that you would expect from such a high dose of Anavar. And within 3 days, I had terrible angina. It was crazy.
3 days, damn. That came on quick. And it just goes to show how quickly orals can take effect. You're not waiting around for weeks like you would have to with longer injectable esters.
No, this actually felt like that scene of Indiana Jones, the Temple of Doom, where the priest reaches into the guy's chest and pulls out his heart. It was still beating for everybody to see in that scene. This kind of felt similarly, but in this case, the hand of the priest was still inside my chest and just squeezing it to the point I felt highly, highly uncomfortable. Again, this was within 3 days of running a double dose, 50 milligrams Anavar per day. So I sat down and let that moment dissipate. And in the wise words of Dexter Jackson, when something like this happens, you get injured or you get something deleterious occur in the gym, go home, live the fight another day. So I discontinued my workout right then and there after catching my breath and regaining my composure.
Yeah, that's good advice. There's been times in my early years of training where I've just tweaked something in the gym and tried to train through it, and it's never worth it. You just end up fucking yourself up, and you turn what could have just been a little tweak into an actual injury that keeps you out the gym for weeks and months.
About 20 minutes, 30 minutes in duration. That's how long I sat in the corner of the gym just assessing the situation, what has just happened. I discontinued the Anavar and I didn't go back to the gym for about a week just to let everything metabolize. Now again, the detection time of oxandrolone is about 3 weeks, so it stays into your system a little bit longer than that, but usually 1 week is more than enough time to kind of let most of these oral steroids leave the body and then get back to baseline. So when
Yeah, that's the good thing with orals, I guess, the quick in, the quick out. So if you do have any issues, you can pull them, and a few days later, the vast majority of it is going to be out of your system.
Back to consecutive workouts, that didn't occur. Of course, I didn't take any oxandrolone after that. I, took my 3-month break to let my liver recover because I was pretty fucking scared when that happened. And if you're now thinking, Steve, what the hell are you talking about? This never ever happened to me when I was running up to 100 milligrams Anavar per day. Well, that's probably because your shit isn't pharmaceutical. It's probably turinable or severely underdosed. Maybe that 100 milligrams that you think you're running is actually 25 milligrams or only 20 milligrams, if that, right? Or you're just not training hard enough to the point your heart actually gets taxed, right? When you train insane, I don't think that anybody out there needs more than 25 milligrams pharmaceutical grade Anavar per day. And that means that those 50 milligram troches that you might get from the compounding pharmacy, yes, you'll have to cut those in half. Don't do what I did, where you have...
At least here in the UK, most of the Anavar you get is legit. I can't speak for the States or other parts of the world, but in my experience, the majority of your Anavar is going to be what it says it is. Remember, these UGLs, they have a reputation to uphold, and if they're found to be faking or underdosing stuff, word gets around quick and they'll go out of business.
You have to blister your fingers pressing out all of those 2.5 milligram tablets, all 20 of them, to get 50 milligrams pharmaceutical Anavar in your system in a single serving. Don't do it. Really, guys, don't do it, because I was on top of my electrolyte balance, right? My calcium, magnesium, my potassium, my sodium, all perfectly balanced, right? Just like Thanos always mentioned, perfectly balanced for myself as an individual. I was on top of my taurine, right? 5,000 milligrams per day. I was on top of my ubiquinol, 2 servings of 100 milligrams morning and evening, and then another 400 milligrams ubiquinol before going to the gym with shilajit fulvic acid. But to be fair, I wasn't on top of my pyrroloquinoline quinone, PQQ, and probably because it wasn't available at that time, or was too expensive, or I was simply not up to speed about PQQ supplementation in the context of cardiac function and mitochondrial benefits overall. Maybe that was the missing ingredient at that time that caused me to have angina running that much Anavar per day. But still, I was on top of everything, dude. I did my ultrasounds, I did my echocardiograms, my electrocardiograms. I didn't do an MRI or CT scan yet, but I did do those a couple of years later, and both the MRI and the CT scan showed a perfectly healthy and functional heart. No stenosis, no issues with the valves, no regurgitation, maybe trivial regurgitation, but that's actually quite normal in the context when you have slight heart enlargement. And even though I had slight heart enlargement, that was uniform, no left ventricular hypertrophy, and certainly no thickening of the walls, no issues with the atriums, no issues with the coronary arteries. So I'm not entirely sure why it happened. If I'm doing everything correctly and I'm doing my daily fasted cardio for overall heart function, and if it can happen to me, guess what? It can happen to you too, because I'm just a normal guy with normal genetic response. So if
Steve does bang the drum about being on top of your supporting supplements and lifestyle habits like fasted cardio, and it still happened to him. Now, he doesn't mention what other anabolics he was taking and stacking with the Anavar, or what else he was taking in terms of stimulants, things like clenbuterol and caffeine could certainly play a factor in triggering a reaction like this.
I don't advocate anything over 25 milligrams pharma Anavar per day. My sincere apologies. It stems from personal experience. I got angina, so I don't want you to get angina also by running a higher dose over 25 milligrams per day. It never happened to me on the 1,000 milligrams of trenbolone per week or 2,000 milligrams of testosterone per week or a very high dose of Anadrol in the context of carb loading. That's in combination with Winstrol injectable and Superdrol. So the amount of DHT derivatives that I got into my system at that time in the context of carb loading, copious amounts, still didn't get angina. Only happened on 50 milligrams pharma Anavar per day. So a word of caution, right? Please don't overdo it. It might happen. And if it doesn't happen, I'm very jealous because I would love to run 50 milligrams pharmaceutical Anavar per day because I was f***ing strong and I looked jacked. I was a borderline gorilla, silverback gorilla that is. And
yeah, it is interesting that it came on as soon as he added the Anavar in, but it could be like a straw that broke the camel's back type scenario, but who really knows?
Now with a very low testosterone, serum testosterone, we're off the scale. So, a little bit of a word of caution, build up your doses slowly. And if something like this happens, just back off, go back home, let everything metabolize and really assess the situation. If you have an underlying condition, which again, at the time I didn't have, I was doing everything right for heart function, but maybe a dose like this can bring up something to the surface that is already there. And instead of letting it sit there and just power shuffling right through because you want those gains, maybe you need to get it addressed.
Yeah, I guess a bit of a cautionary tale. Will this happen to you running 50 milligrams of Anavar? Probably not, but it's just something to be aware of. And I think people mistake Anavar as a weak drug that's a bit of a freebie in terms of side effects when, that's certainly not the case. And this video should prove that you should still respect and dose it correctly. I'll link Steve's video in the description if you want to check it out. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, like the video and subscribe for more of this content. EnhancedPlayer.com is the blog for coaching, consultations and sourcing. See you next time.
Party time,